Number 1. The American weekend officially begins on Friday evening, but already by Friday morning there are signs that the weekend is just around the corner. You see fewer cars on the highways, and buses and subways are less crowded with people, too. This is because some people take a day off on Friday to have a 3-day weekend. Things are also different at work. People don't wear the same clothes as they wear on weekdays. They dress themselves more casually. For instance, managers in the office may put on casual sports clothes instead of coats and ties. Some people put on blue jeans. This trend toward Easy Fridays is popular with employees who normally wear uniforms to work. In Los Angeles, for example, bus drivers are usually dressed in military-style jackets, hats, and trousers. Recently, however, they have received permission to wear polo shirts and baseball caps on Fridays. Transportation officials believe that this new Friday dress code is good for the driver's morale, and they are also sure that the passengers won't mind, just as long as the buses run on time.
Number 2. In many American families, it is common for both parents to have full-time jobs, even when they have little children. But if both mom and dad are gone all day, who on earth takes care of the kids? In quite a few homes, the nanny does. A long time ago, only rich people could afford to have a nanny. Nannies were usually middle-aged, unmarried women who were strict with the children. They insisted on their children's behaving themselves at all times. These days, however, many middle-class families have college students to work as nannies. Usually these people who take care of children are young women, but some young men do this type of work too. Often nannies live with the family, and the children grow up to love them very much. These live-in jobs appeal to college students because they don't have to spend money on rent or food. Sometimes foreign students take jobs as nannies, hoping such work will help them improve their English skills. There is one problem, though. Because they spend so much time playing and talking with little children, most of the English they learn is baby talk.
Number 3. After having lived for over 20 years in the same district, Albert was forced to move to a new place. His landlord was taken aback to hear he was leaving because he couldn't afford to buy any more chocolate. It all began a year ago. As Albert returned home one evening, he found a large dog in front of his gate. He was fond of animals, and as he happened to have a small piece of chocolate in his pocket, he gave it to the dog. The next day, the dog was there again. It held up its paw and received another piece of chocolate as a reward. Albert called his new friend Bingo. He failed to discover the dog's real name or who his owner was. However, Bingo never failed to appear regularly every afternoon, and it was very clear that he preferred chocolate to bones. Soon the dog was not satisfied with small pieces of chocolate and demanded a large bar every day. If at any time Albert neglected his duty, Bingo got very angry and didn't let him open the gate. He was now at the mercy of Bingo and had to bribe him to get into his own house. As he had to spend such a large part of his weekly wages to supply Bingo with chocolate, he moved somewhere else.
Number 4. Today, in many parts of the world, it is customary for people to shake hands on meeting as a gesture of goodwill. Originally, however, the practice of shaking hands had a more practical purpose. Shaking hands originated in medieval times. In those days, when a man came across a stranger, he would often reach for his weapon out of fear in spite of himself with his right hand, in case he had to use the weapon to defend himself. Sometimes the two men had been circling around each other with weapons in their hands until they laid aside the weapons. Then the two persons extended their right hands to show they had no weapons. It is not known when and why the handshake changed from a simple clasping of hands to include a shaking movement. This shaking movement of the clasped hands probably started as early as the 16th century.
Number 5. Today it seems that the earth is in danger, and one of the big problems is the loss of trees and forests. Trees give off oxygen, which is essential to animal life. In the past few decades, the need for wood has increased dramatically. This means that more and more trees are being cut down, and if people do not take any measures to stop it, this process will speed up in the future. In addition to the need for wood, people are clearing forests of trees for agricultural land. In some areas, the land is farmed until no crops grow well. Then the farmers move on and cut down the trees in another area to make room for more crops. This is especially true of the rainforests of Brazil and other countries. They are in the process of disappearing. It is said that an area about as large as a soccer field disappears every minute. At this rate, our forests are to disappear completely and never to grow again.
Number 6. The achievements of Benjamin Franklin are not so well known as his name, but America owes what she is to his achievements. Benjamin Franklin was born in Boston, but he made his way to Philadelphia at the age of 16. On arriving there, he walked around and looked for lodgings and work. His industry brought him success, and when he was about 40 years old, he retired to devote himself to helping the people of his colony. Soon he was engaged in everything good and useful. He organized a fire company, and he saw to it that the streets of the city were lighted and cleaned. He set up the first library, the first academy, and the first post office. He made an experiment of electricity by flying a kite in a storm. As a result, lightning proved to be electricity. He printed many newspapers, and he brought out an almanac each year. Later, Franklin went to London to represent the American colonies. Though he lived in England a long time, he was the last person to lose the American simplicity or the American point of view. When he felt that the time had come for America to break away from England and set up for herself, he took the lead in working for independence.
Number 7. When someone sees a car coming, he shouts at you, "Look out!" Hearing the shout, you jump just in time to avoid being run over by an automobile. You owe your escape to the fundamental cooperative act by which most of the higher animals survive. That is, communication by means of noises. You didn't see the car coming, but someone else caught sight of it, and he made noises to communicate his alarm to you. In other words, although your nervous system took no note of the danger, you were not injured because another nervous system took note of it. For the time being, you took advantage of someone else's nervous system in addition to your own. Indeed, we are dependent on the nervous systems of others to make up for what we have missed by ourselves without paying attention.
Number 8. Being an air stewardess is so attractive that many girls apply for the job, and they work hard so that they may be a good stewardess. The reason is that they think they can make a living and see the sights of the world at the same time. Of course, stewardesses travel a lot, but are often too tired or too busy to pay a visit to many foreign tourist spots. They are working girls, after all. But it is also true that they must be equal to a job requiring professional abilities. They also need to be calm enough to carry out the necessary procedures in case of an emergency. A passenger's life may depend on them just as well as on the pilot's, so you should not think little of their job.
Number 9. A. The British pride themselves on their sense of humor. As a matter of fact, they are gifted with it. If you suspected a British man of being without a sense of humor, he would protest strongly. Not by any means would he admit to not having a sense of humor, any more than he would ever admit to being a bad driver. B. Useful as it is, a computer is nothing more than a machine that faithfully follows our instructions. It is a big mistake, therefore, to think that a computer can make a judgment on an issue without any clear guidelines. For example, when a computer says, "Destroy your enemy," you must think twice before you take any action. In fact, a computer can never give orders, but only make suggestions. There is, however, one activity which a computer can perform much better than we can. That is memorizing. Alas, we all fall short of the simplest computer with respect to this.
Number 10. One advantage of living in Japan is that the other foreigners that one is acquainted with are more interesting for the most part than the people one meets in one's own country. Those who come here of their own accord and who live here by choice tend to be different from ordinary people. If they had been ordinary people, they would never have come to Japan. Such people, in my experience, are very interesting on the whole. They have come to Japan for various reasons, but for whatever reason, they have chosen to live in Japan. I have more friends among the foreigners in Tokyo than I would have if I were in England. This sounds like an exaggeration, but I do not think that it is. In England, I would have many friends, but I do not think I would have such close friends. My friends here include Americans, Englishmen, and people from other countries. As far as I know, these people are representative of their various societies. The interest in Japan that we have in common brings us close to each other and plays an important role in forming understanding and friendship between us.
Number 11. Earth is different from other planets because of water. Water has a tremendous effect on our planet. Nothing is as important as water to life on the earth. But for water, life on the earth would be impossible. Humans are composed of nearly 70% water, and we are dependent on water in many ways. We couldn't do without water even a day. However, serious water supply problems exist in regions where fresh water is in short supply, such as deserts. Even regions abundant in fresh water are not without problems, and maintaining the quality and quantity of water is very important. Worldwide, we are using more and more water, in part because our population is on the increase, and in part because on the average, each person is using more water. Especially in developing countries, the supply of water can't keep up with the demand for water. To meet the need for water, we must take whatever steps are necessary.
Number 12. I remember meeting an American by accident on a long-distance bus. He never stopped talking all the way, which annoyed me a lot. Americans, in 9 cases out of 10, are a talkative people, and it's easy to make friends with them. They feel most comfortable in putting their thoughts into spoken words. Little is left to the imagination of the listener. An American much prefers to say exactly what he has in mind. In talking with an American for the first time, you may notice that the conversation makes quick progress. It is common for travelers who have sat down beside each other to have almost finished exchanging their life stories by the time they get to their destination. If you should meet such a talkative American, you would not be so nervous. You need not think you have to answer all the questions you are asked. Just turn the conversation back to him by asking questions of your own. He will be content to talk about himself.
Number 13. For a long time, people have looked for ways to preserve food so that it could be used later. We have no idea how or when people discovered methods of food preservation. The chances are that hungry hunters ate dried berries or grapes. They took to the taste of them and took some home. Later, people learned how to dry berries and grapes by exposing them to the sun. By chance, people may have left some food in the snow. They saw that these cold or frozen foods lasted longer than fresh foods. They found out that salt prevented food from spoiling. They also came to know that cooking kept food from going bad. Later, people learned how to tame animals and to grow crops. They gave up wandering and made homes. They learned how to make cheese and butter from the milk of some animals and to make wine from the grapes they grew. They found that when wine soured, it became vinegar and could be used to preserve foods. New ways of preserving food were added to their knowledge.